Well, welcome everyone. I appreciate you joining us very much. We're from CENTEGIX and we are talking about our safe schools now. So kind of just a couple of housekeeping issues real quick. Um, we do want to get started on time out of respect for your time. Couple things, you should have received a Uber Eats gift card this morning. I appreciate Stacy and Mary getting that out there. If you did not, certainly contact us later. We'll make sure you get that. So we wanted to at least be able to provide you a sandwich the best we could. The We're going to open up the Q&A. So at any time that you have any information or you need more information, you want to ask a question, anything like that, just put it into the Q&A and I'll kind of watch that as we go along and make sure that we get your questions answered. So first of all, I'd like to introduce our panel today. Matt Young is a regional VP from CENTEGIX. He is Michigan based, very been around for quite a while and an outstanding resource for school safety and security. My name is Gary Kuhn. I'm the regional director here in Michigan as well. And I'd like to also introduce Dr. Amy Kruppe, who is the superintendent of Hazel Park Schools. And I'm sure that you're probably here to hear what she has to say more than Matt and I. So, and then also we have Will Fullerton. Will is our head of our government affairs group with CENTEGIX. And Will is joining us probably from somewhere around Texas today. So I appreciate that, Will. So a little bit on us. We are CENTEGIX. We are based out of Atlanta, Georgia. As you can see, we're in over 12,000 sites now and over 10 million people protected. So we are making our way across the country. Started in 3 of the 10 largest districts. We started in Florida after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting. We've made some advancements. We tried to come up with some ways that we could get people to the problem a lot quicker and have something that was available to everybody. We've had a lot of technological advances. We started with a rechargeable device. We started with multiple buttons, all that kind of stuff. But through listening to people like you, we found out what makes the most sense and how do we keep everybody safe. So that badge that you see there is what we have. It's a single button, does 2 things. Matt will explain that in a bit. No Wi-Fi, no cellular, multi-year battery life. So a lot of things, a lot of our innovations that keep us at the cutting edge of technology came from folks like you and came from situations that have happened, and we strive every single day to make sure that we are the best we can be and making sure that we can keep your staff and students safe. So next thing I'd like to kind of talk about and kind of send the floor over to Will, but I'd like to talk a little bit about House Bill 5503 that is introduced in Michigan, and we'll let Mr. Will Fullerton take over and kind of give you an overview on what that looks like.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Howdy, everyone. I am in Texas today, even though I've spent more time probably in Lansing, Michigan, the last couple of months than actually at home here in Austin. So House Bill 5503, that is a school safety kind of state aid package, passed last month, and it contains $125 million direct appropriation specifically to DOE to administer school safety kind of allocations. It is a list of things that it may be spent on, as well as the bill contains a provision that districts can opt in, right? Which means if you don't want to take part in any of the money, you don't want to take part in any of the grant guidelines that are forthcoming, you don't have to effectively. That can often raise the allotment per district significantly if there's a run for the exit, so to speak. It is part of this fiscal year's budget. In Michigan, we're about 30 days in. The fiscal year 24-25 started October 1st, I believe. So the money is there today, obviously, and the bill expresses that the Department of Education shall notify districts by the end of this calendar year. So by December 31st of 2024, should allow districts to know what's coming and how that weighted funding is done per pupil. It's a total of 125 million, emergency response systems, school safety infrastructure, and actually a couple other things that are in the bill constitute us as an allowable use, basically. And because it was passed kind of late in the fiscal year, if you will, about a week left in the fiscal year 23-4, that money is going to flow quickly. So we expect guidance from DOE in the coming weeks, and how that money is going to trickle out into districts, hopefully before the end of the year. And the bill says before the end of the year. That's it's not always a deadline that is met in state government work, but we will certainly stay on it, and hopefully be a resource for all you on the call today.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Will. Really appreciate that. So the next thing I'd like to do is introduce introduce to Matt Young, and let him talk with Dr. Kruppe and talk a little bit about Hazel Park Schools, kind of the decision that they made, what it looks like there, a little bit of the data, and how things go. So Matt.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. So yeah, as Gary had said, my name is Matt Young. I am the regional vice president here in Michigan and throughout the Midwest. I've been about 20 years in education, in the last 7 or so, directly involved with safety and security. And I was brought in by Dr. Kruppe about 2 years or so ago now, I think. Time flies. But we've gone through quite a bit, from the initial conversation to the implementation to them going live. And I think that Amy has a great story to tell, not only with her experience, but what they're doing with safety and security in the district. So first off, before we get to the official safety assessment, and I'd love for you to talk more about that, Dr. Kruppe, can you tell us a little bit more about Hazel Park, where you're located, and just a few characteristics about the district?
Sure, absolutely. Well, Hazel Park Schools is in Oakland County, but don't let that fool you. We are on the corner of Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne, right by 9 Mile. And we have about 3,200 students, 9 schools, 2 alternative schools that are within that, and some special education center programs here in Oakland County as well. We're about 70% our SEE for free and reduced. And so we have quite a mix of individuals in our community, and just a tight-knit, wonderful community here in Hazel Park that I live in as well. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So, I mentioned the safety assessment, and our conversation starting a few years back, and there was somebody on your team that had reached out to me specifically and said, hey, we just went through the safety assessment, and actually, of all things, visitor management. That's what's front of mind for us right now. And I had said, that's great. Let's talk about it. But I said, I want to also put CrisisAlert on your radar as well, too. So from that, we've grown into quite a bit within the district. But for everybody on the call, can you talk us through, Dr. Kruppe, what that safety assessment looked like? What were some of the main takeaways, and kind of your goals and objectives when we started our conversation?
right. Well, I had spent 24 years in Illinois and had the ability to present before with Paul Timms, who's a national safety expert. And so when it came time for us to really look at what did we want to do in our schools that got us the biggest safety bang for our buck, right? What were we going to do? And so we brought Paul Timms in and brought him through the district, and we looked at our entranceways, we looked at cameras, we looked at secured vestibules, and each of our buildings had an opportunity through Alliance to have a safety plan put in place. And we know that some of the biggest things that help safety are our entrances and our visitor management systems. And so that's kind of the common sense communication that Paul shared with us and has shared with me before in the past. When we think about safety, lock doors, know who's in your building, and know that they're out. And so we had him come in, and so we started looking like what would make sense for us for visitor management. And I had used a different visitor management before, but we wanted to make sure that we looked at all of them and the characteristics that they could give and expand upon. That was pretty exciting when you guys came in, and then you talked about having another system in place that was going to help us understand who was where, when, and why, and which is a better security piece for our teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it was one of those things where, as I go to the next slide, you see some of your staff members there, but we really take a holistic approach to what happens on your campuses and throughout your district. So we're going to talk more. I'm going to show the badge here for just a second. We're going to talk more about Crisis Alert in just a minute, because that's what the focus of our conversation is going to be around. But you guys wanted something that was going to be able to say, hey, we're looking at our visitors, volunteers, contractors coming in and out of our buildings, and we want to know where they are at all times. So one of the pieces on our safety platform is enhanced visitor management, knowing where those folks are. But really, when you talk about those safety assessments, we look at reducing response time. And so with that, part of what we did in Hazel Park was every single staff member has a Crisis Alert badge. And we'll talk about what it does in a second, but we're really talking about empowering every single staff member. So this is, Dr. Kruppe, every day she's wearing the badge. Their principals are wearing the badges. Teachers are wearing the badges. Custodians are wearing the badges, and anywhere and everywhere in between, right? So no matter who you are and no matter where you are, if you need help or if you need to help a student, you can press the button and help will find you. So it's really, and it's looked at, we talk about reducing incident response time. That means a lot of different things for a lot of different people. SROs, obviously, the faster you can get there, and safety directors in your districts, the faster you can get there, the better the outcome, right? But I think, Dr. Kruppe, you can attest to this. We're talking about getting back to instructional time. Like how quickly, what are we losing and how quickly can we gain it back, right? So I think that's another main piece too. And I'll let you talk about that here in just a second. But the last thing I want to mention is these badges, they don't rely on Wi-Fi or cell connection. We actually create our own individual Bluetooth networks that is extremely reliable and also extremely effective in and around your campus. But I want to go back to the staff, because obviously I showed a picture of your staff. Amy, when we talk about empowering staff, that is a big thing today now in education, right? And that's for a number of reasons. With Crisis Alert, we empower your staff to get help anywhere on campus. So that's how really we're able to augment what you're doing. But I'd love to hear from you, when we talk about staff improvement, what does that mean for you? And why is that so important for the folks in Hazel Park?
Well, I think all of us across the country know that teacher burnout, teacher stress, and then added to school safety alerts that are coming all over are items that are making our teachers and our staff fearful to be in schools. And the ability to have the alert system, the crisis alert system, immediately helps our staff know that someone's going to be there immediately. So whether you're a big school district or a small school district, for me, and as a small school district, I know when somebody needs help inside the buildings. I know when someone accidentally pushes it inside the buildings, but at least I can reach out immediately to understand, are there fights going on? Is there a student that's eloping? And it gives a sense of security and support to our staff, which is really what we want to see, right? We want to support, our job is to serve our staff in the buildings, and we want them to feel safe and secure in their buildings and know that the police, as well as the superintendent and our other support, are going to be there right away if that's what you need.
Yeah, and I think that actually, to me, that's a better understanding, or kind of keeping your finger on the pulse, right? A little bit more, or allows you to better, understand exactly what's happening and when, right? So I think that's a huge piece for what we're talking about here. And, I want Amy to chime in as well, too, when we're talking through the uses of the badge. But let me kind of set the table here. So when we talk about this badge, again, everyone has the badge. Every single staff member in the district has the badge. And the badge is used for two different reasons. One is what we call a staff alert. That's the I need help. That's someone saying, hey, this situation is too great for me to handle on my own, and I need help, and I need it very quickly. But yet we don't need to disrupt the entire campus, okay? So this could be for that medical emergency, or perhaps a fight in the hallway, or a student running off campus. And we're going to hear some examples here in a minute too of this badge being in play in the district. The other piece is that campus-wide alert. We're going to talk about that in a second, because honestly, guys, 98% of the time, 99% of the time, the badge is used in schools for that I need help, that staff alert. Okay, so let's take a look at how that works and what this means. There's training involved with what we do. Obviously, we want to make sure that all staff, no matter where you are, no matter who you are well supported. So staff are trained to press the button 3 times. I need help, right? You press that button, an alert gets sent. The badge actually vibrates in the user's hand, so they know that that alert was just sent. And when they do that, alerts are sent out to the leaders of that building or that campus that you're on. Now, we call them campus responders, okay? Typically, what this looks like is a principal, an assistant principal. You might have an SRO. It might be a counselor. And Dr. Kruppe, I'd love for you to talk more about what that looks like for you guys in your district. But a couple things to note here. When those alerts go out and that person is calling for help, that specific set of people get notified. They see on their desktop or laptop and also their phone, an immediate map of the building pops up. So they see who's calling for help and they see exactly where they're located. This also means inside and outside of the building. So we cover all the rooms inside of the building down to the floor and the room. So we know it's Mr. Smith in room 102. And we also cover the outside of the building as well too. So we would know if it's Mrs. Smith and she's in the north parking lot. So help knows exactly where to go and how this is used. A couple things I want to note too, if you're off campus, you're out to lunch, it's the weekend, you're at home, the badges don't work. You do have to be on one of your campuses for the badge to work, but badges are assigned to a person. That's why we have a QR code on the badge. So the badge actually follows that staff member. So if you have folks that work at different buildings throughout the district, or if you find yourself at another building at some point in time and need help, you can call for help and it will alert the right folks. Dr. Kruppe, I want to bring you back in. I'd love to just hear kind of the things that were going through your head when I was talking about the alert, because obviously you receive those alerts in your district. But talk to me about some specific examples, if you could too.
Yeah, well, I find it really wonderful to have this opportunity. I think one of the one that sits up when we talk about off campus, all of us know superintendents or people that we have football games, right? And in the Detroit metro area, we've had a lot of situations where the football games have had fights going on at them.
Right.
We have not had that, but what's nice is when I walk into that football game, I know that I have this badge right here with me and that I am able to utilize this badge if there was something that was going on right out there on a football field. So I think that's a really great piece. I think the other piece is that, we all have those young kids that are eloping from our campuses, high disability needs. And it's really easy for me to see when that pops up on my screen, what school it is, who it is. And for me as a small school district superintendent, I know the staff member and I know what kids are there. And it also indicates to me that there might need to be extra behavior plans going on, that there might be talking to my special ed director about, hey, I noticed that, Susie had elopements 4 times in the building. And so we really need to be focusing in on that. And or when I see a person running out of the school, because you can see where they're moving in the school, I know that I have a kid eloping off campus and I send people that direction or myself to go and make sure that those kids are brought safely back on. There's another thing that you have to think about though as well, and that is that you got to turn it off your phone and your computer when you're at a big conference so that you don't let it go off in a big crowd, because no matter where you are as a superintendent or an administrator, it still is on your phone unless you turn it off. And so when you're away what's happening in your school district and you can be in touch. I feel like for me, it's given me a better sense of being able to say to the teacher, hey, I noticed there's been some difficulties. Do you want to talk about that? Or checking in on individuals, checking in on my principals. I know when the small things are happening and I know when the larger things are happening too.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good. And you're right. We do let you know that's part of the system, right? You will know when an alert comes through. So, on your phone, it comes through similar to like an Amber Alert or a flash flood warning. We let those users know, those responders know, hey, somebody needs help and they need it now. And then, on your desktop or laptop, It's an immediate screen takeover. So again, we're very purposeful in what we do. And I love the fact too, this is not your first rodeo. You little bit of a teaser. We will talk about some data. So, Dr. Kruppe mentioned being able to see what's happening in your buildings. We're going to talk a little bit about the data because with us, data is not just on the instructional side of the house. It's actually with school safety as well too. But the next spot I want to talk about is that culture of caring and safety, creating that culture of caring and safety. And, we talked a little bit about this more towards the beginning with your staff and when we're empowering them, right? And what that does for morale and what that does for retention and recruitment and things like that. So, and obviously the biggest concern, especially, whether it's Hazel Park or other leaders on this call, you're always thinking, are my teachers' voices being heard? Are they part of the process here of what we're trying to accomplish in the district? So, because it doesn't matter if you're at the building level or if you're at the district level, everybody's primary job is the safety of their students, and then that leading to better instruction, right? So talk to me a little bit, Dr. Kruppe, about some of the investments you guys have made, obviously more specifically around CENTEGIX and CrisisAlert. But when you talk about those investments and looking at creating that culture of safety and caring.
Well, I think, number one, if your grounds aren't safe, if your staff don't feel safe, you can't learn. Because we need to be able, every child needs to be able to come into a school, every staff member needs to come into a school and have a safe environment. And the kids know about the buttons. We've had a few children press the buttons on their staff's piece, which is okay. But I think if you come across with this and make this that all safety pieces are put in place so that we can communicate. And if it's a false alarm, it's a false alarm. If it's a mistake, it's a mistake. But it's you take each and every situation and take it seriously. Any staff member knows it just do it. If it's something that we can just brush off, that's fine as well. And I think that does empower our staff. It's their voices. They feel comfortable when individuals are visiting our buildings. We know exactly where they are inside the buildings. And so then that gives a good voice to our staff as well to know that we're watching and taking serious people that are coming into our school. They can't just come into our school, but it gives a voice to our staff to be able to say, hey, I feel unsafe at any point in time, whether it's a student, somebody walking in the hall, or even if it's a simple mistake.
Absolutely. So, that feeling of support, which actually I want to jump to the next slide, which is exactly what we're talking about with this. And I know you've seen this slide before, Amy, but I would just love to hear from you. Any one of these questions really stick out to you? And if so, why? I mean, I know we talk about a lot of things here, empowering, recommendations. Is it easy to use? Do you feel more supported? What really sticks out to you when you look at these?
I think well, number one, success, right? When you are seeing the responses in the 90%, that's success. But I also think the first one is important. Did you use it did using the bad empower you to rapidly resolve that situation? And it does, because everybody's coming in, and the more hands that are coming on right at that moment, the more likely that you are to diffuse that situation. And you also don't feel alone. So it goes to the last one is, did it feel you safe and more supported? I mean, when you have a superintendent that can either reach out to you or show up on the scene just to check out to make sure that everybody is okay and they know that. I mean, how often does that happen? In a larger district, it's going to be your safety coordinator. It's going to be an assistant super, a deputy Q. But for me, having that ability to reach out and let them know that I see them and I see what's happening, and that I also then can talk about the areas of concern that we have is important. And so I think it is so important that we continue to hear the voices of our staff, and we provide and give that safe environment.
You mentioned
real quick on that. There's a question that's kind of for Dr. Kruppe that might fit in here. But one of the participants want to know, did you give the badge to support staff initially? And if you did, what was their response initially?
Everybody in the whole school district got it at the same time. No one person in our district, no one person is more important than the other, from the custodians to the security guards, to the paraprofessionals, to the secretaries. Everyone has this badge. And I think, our secretaries are just as fearful at the front door. They're our first people in, as our custodians are that are there late at night. And so it is there for them. Every person is equally as important and have a voice in what's safe in our environment. And we have a safety committee that further exemplifies that voice and someone from every group is welcome to participate.
You know, that's really interesting that you say that, because that's a lot of what we see, and especially the data that comes in. You know, over half of the incidents that we see on the platform happen outside of the classroom. So you just touched on it, the front office, you talked about the custodians at night. You know, the badge doesn't turn off. So if you're there for an after-school event, if you're there cleaning rooms, if you're there, to your point earlier, Amy, about the Friday night football games, you know, whatever the case may be, the badges work. So wherever you are, if you're on school grounds, you know, you can call for help, which is extremely empowering, but it also is a differentiator, I think, and just adds one more thing to help support, you know, anyone and everyone with what we're doing. So let's get into the second use of the badge, which is the campus-wide alert. Okay, that would be for a lockdown. All right. Now, you know, we immediately, I think, and we're almost programmed to do this by what we see in the news, but you know, you always think the worst of the worst, right? But you know, this can be a lot of different things. This could be, you know, simply just a weapon on campus. You know, nothing's happened. There could be a weapon on campus, could be an unauthorized visitor. There could be a police situation in the area, right? A lot of different reasons on why you would use it. But the main thing, and Gary talked about this early on, was, you know, our big takeaway of why this badge was even created in the first place was, how can we get everyone on your campus into the protocols as fast as possible? Because protocols save lives, right? Every second matters. That's what we say at CENTEGIX. Protocols save lives. So Amy's going to talk a little bit more about this in a second, about the I Love You guys and her protocols with what they have implemented. But, you know, we want to augment what you guys have done with your training and what staff know to do in those situations with what we can do with the badge. So in the case of a lockdown that's needed, you know, we talk about staff and the training, and we want to make sure that all staff know, hey, just keep clicking the badge. Okay, just keep clicking the badge, because in a matter of seconds, you're going to see everything on the screen happen in parallel. Again, very, very quickly. So let me put this up for you, and I'm going to give this a chance.
This is a lockdown alert. Immediately lock your doors. Turn off the lights. Stay out of sight. This is a lockdown alert. Immediately lock your doors. Turn off the lights. Stay out of sight.
So with our system, we tie in audio and visual cues. So no matter if you're a staff member, a student, a visitor, a volunteer, a contractor on campus, everyone will know to respond appropriately. We put visual cues. We have strobes in all your rooms, even over outside exterior doors, okay? We tie into your intercom. You just heard a recording. So we have a pre-recorded message that will come over. Screens get taken over with lockdown and specific information tied to your protocols. Campus responders, those leaders at your buildings, obviously they get alerted immediately, but we also then can communicate out to district leaders, letting you all know that, hey, someone in your buildings, in one of your buildings, is calling for lockdown. You all get alerted multiple ways. And then we can also tie into first responders. So if you wanted somebody coming as a first responder in the case of a lockdown, we can have that immediate response as well too. The bottom line is that no matter who you are or where you are, we're getting everybody in kind of uniformity across the board. So Dr. Kruppe, tell me a little bit about your guys' protocols and kind of maybe the alignment there, and just what you see the benefits are with tying in the cues, how we do.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, when we did our evaluation of our district, we looked out across the country and we adopted the I Love You Guys protocol, which is a free protocol that everyone can utilize. And it is recommended by the Michigan State Police now, as of this fall, to be used in schools. So this locks right in with that. You know, it is red is locked down, and it tells you exactly. So the strobes are going, and it's an immediate response so that our kids know what they need to do and when they need to do it, and to hide, right? There's other terms such as evacuate that we can do, but this is, you know, if there's an immediate response, the first thing that we want to do is it's red, and you get the red strobe inside our rooms, and we want those kids to hide inside those classrooms. And so it just aligns right there with I love you guys as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, take action immediately, right? That's what we know. And actually, you just touched on it. So we also, this is another feature on our platform. We give you guys the extra ability, if you will, to broadcast other emergency codes. So should there be a situation where you might have to evacuate the building because of a gas leak, or if there's a tornado in the area and you need to shelter, or perhaps a police situation where we don't necessarily need to stop instruction on the inside, but nobody's coming in or out of the building, you can broadcast as a leader of that building, as a campus responder, you can broadcast other emergency codes for the staff and the student body to respond appropriately. So just one more benefit of the system. Okay, so let's hop into data, and then we'll take some questions. But I do think it's extremely important to talk about the data. So we have a dashboard. After everything that happens on our system, we are logging those alerts. So from a school to school basis and a district-wide basis, you are able to get a very good understanding of what's happening, when, where, why, right? So when we look at school culture and climate, student achievement, teachers, recruitment, retention, professional development, things like that, you get a very good grasp on what's happening, and this really opens up the lines of communication. So for a staff alert, a campus-wide alert, a drill, by the way, you can run drills on our platform, as emergency drills on our platform as well too. We asked the responder, hey, once everything was taken care of, what happened here? So now we're turning that who, what, where, when, why into actionable data. So Dr. Kruppe, you told me the other day a little bit about using this data, talking about it in your safety meetings, and how you may even incorporate that even more so. Talk to us a little bit about what it looks like to you and some of the things you guys may have done with the data.
Right. So as I shared, we do have a safety committee that we review what's happening, how it's happening, and so we take this opportunity to look at how often this is happening, and it is reducing. And I have to tell you, we do see a reduction in the amount of alerts that are being sent as opposed to the beginning of the school year. But it really helps us think about where things are happening and what else we might need to do. Do we need to put extra hall monitors in a certain spot? Do we have some students in our special education classes that we need to address differently because we seem to have them eloping? What are the facility changes that we need to make because I've seen that 4 kids have eloped out that back door and headed towards the highway. Those conversations that you might not have had an opportunity to know before, or where positioned in a building people need to be, you're having because you're able to see the data about who the students are. It doesn't say who the students are, but by the teacher, right? Who they are, where in the building, what times of the day they're happening, and what we need to do to make a difference for that, and where people need to be around, or how to also start thinking before those things could happen, what we need to have in place. It also is a sense sometimes of some humor when individuals hit it accidentally, and you get to hear about that as well, because when it says accident and then you're rushing like, is everything okay? And yes, I sat on it, or something along those lines. There's a little bit of humor and levity sometimes, which also we all know that when that happens, that builds better relationships with your people as well. When you're having those personal interactions, whether it's a stressful time or whether it's a funny time, you're building that security with each other and knowing that someone's going to be there for you to support you.
Well, and you took the words right out of my mouth, and which is, we're not going to sit here and say that an accidental press has never happened. Sure, it does. But you know what? You take it as a learning moment. Yes, you can laugh about it in the end, but really what we're doing is we're bringing accountability to the table, letting folks know that, hey, when you do press the button, we are responsive, we hear you, and we will be responding. And so the message gets sent really quick, and I'm sure you can attest to this, Amy, that the message gets sent really quick that, hey, you push button, you need help, we're coming, and we will be there for you to support you. So Gary, I'm going to transition into the next slide, which is our questions slide. What has come through on the chat, and what are you seeing on your end?
Okay, so a couple things. If you we'll continue to answer the questions the best we can. I do want to be respectful for time, so we'll kind of nearing the end. But if you do have questions, absolutely put them in. I promise you, if we don't get at them, and we won't be able to, given the time we have, but we will, we'll definitely get back and answer those questions for you. So the first kind of, not really I'll just pull them in order. I think that's kind of probably the most respectful thing to do. But this one probably would be a Will. Will, do they have to wait until the end of the year to be notified, seeing the money's there? Can they, do they have to wait to be notified, or can they access it now?
The final amount isn't going to be known until that end of year, right? So how many districts and subsequently how many students, because it's per pupil, are in the pool, if you will. That doesn't mean that you can't start having those conversations and get an idea and understanding of what you as the district, your allotment will be. And we're working with DOE right now too to kind of get more answers. But no, the short answer would be no. I think if you waited till the end of the year, it would be too late. I think it should be, have those conversations with DOE right now. In other states, and we work in a lot of them, the agency will start issuing guidelines at some point, right, of what their definition of an emergency response system is. And so they could come out with rules, and these are important, obviously, for decision makers, administrators, school safety professionals to consider. Other states have basically come out and said, look, if anything's dependent on a teacher's personal device, so it's a download on a personal device, that's not going to be compliant. You can understand why teachers wouldn't want to download a bunch of stuff on their personal devices. We've seen location accuracy be part of the requirements for these emergency response systems. DOEs around the country that do this sort of thing, they want to make sure that responders at the campus level, and certainly in the extreme, at the 911 level, they want to know where that call for help originated. So, in states like Texas, that is classroom level location accuracy. And then the last piece that we've seen more and more often is that these emergency response systems have to be made available for all teachers, at least. They don't always say all staff, say all teachers plus substitutes, or they say at least one teacher per education classroom, right? So that you've got that kind of one panic button per classroom type of eyes and ears on the ground when people have them, et cetera. But those are the three most common provisions we see when the regulators are inking it up, if you will.
Yep. Thanks, Will. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming probably be Dr. Kruppe. How did Hazel Park fund this purchase?
We utilized our safety funding from last school year to purchase this, which was a per pupil basis for it. But the one piece that I would go back to this is that, we all know as superintendents or leaders of school districts that there's a process that has to be gone through. And so my recommendation would be the same, is that if this is something you're interested in, by the time you have the conversations and then you quote it about what that's going to look like, and then you take it to your school board for approval, that hopefully that funding mechanism will be there for all of us to look at what the next safety initiative is that you're doing in your district. So I think that's going to take you a couple months.
And then Matt, this one probably, how long does it take to install a district of 7 schools?
Yeah, great question. So we look at our timeline really at about 120 days. So that's from, ink on the bottom line, on the dotted line to going live. So there's a lot obviously in between that, from the implementation to the installation to the training, the testing, and then going live. But yeah, you can probably look at about 120 days for a full implementation.
Okay. And this probably is you as well, but who works with law enforcement?
Who works with law enforcement? In terms of, making that connection when there is a call for help, you're saying?
I'm assuming it's
okay. Yeah, I mean, we obviously will lean on the district leaders because obviously they're in contact with local and county level, emergency responders to begin with. But yes, we can help with that. I mean, obviously we've done it in multiple states, different jurisdictions and things like that, and there's different ways to do it. So we will definitely be part of the process, but obviously we'll lean on you for intros and things like that to make sure that connection it gets set up.
Are other districts in Michigan utilizing the system?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got schools. I think, in fact, we have one school in the UP, and then we have another. I would say
Two now, Matt.
two. Excuse me. That's right. Two now.
Yes,
We are
sir.
growing. See, but yes, I mean we do have another handful of districts or so that are utilizing as well too. Dr. Kruppe's district was the first district in Oakland County to use us, but yes, we are definitely growing. That's for sure.
Okay. All right. We'll take the rest of these offline. I promise you, if your question did not get answered, I promise somebody will answer that for you. You have our contact information there. A couple unique things in the state of Michigan, I feel. Both Matt and I live in Michigan. We send our kids to public school in Michigan. Obviously, mine is in past tense or a little bit long in the tooth these days. But so we support our public school system. We are in Michigan. We would be more than happy to meet, either a Google Meet or in person, get any more information. But you have our contact information there. The kind of point I'm making is we will support you, in any way possible. We want to be part of your solution, and we want to make sure that things go as smoothly as possible. So with that, I really appreciate everybody that attended today. Like I say, if you did not get your Lunch and Learn gift card, please let us know, and we'll make sure that gets out there. We will definitely get your questions answered. With that, we'll hang out for a bit if somebody wants to hang out or have any other questions that they really need specifically answered right now. But other than that, on behalf of CENTEGIX, Hazel Park Schools, we cannot thank you enough for your attendance and more importantly for looking and digging deeper to try to keep your staff and students safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.